everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Unraveled and Rising podcast, the place where we talk about the messy parts of life, the healing parts of life, and everything in between. I'm Michelle.
I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Terry.
And around here, we truly believe that you don't have to have it all figured out to keep it moving forward.
This is a place for honest conversations and real stories.
And the truth is, sometimes you just completely have to unravel to rise.
That's right. So grab your coffee, take a breath, and let's get into today's conversation, which is going to be a really, really good one. So today we're diving into something that all of us think about, whether it be positive thoughts, negative thoughts, great thoughts, ups and downs and highs and lows. But very few of us honestly talk about money. And that is going to be the topic of conversation today. And I think about money. Think about money can create freedom. It can cause stress. It can end marriages. It can keep us awake at night. It makes us feel unsuccessful or successful. And it can convince us that we're failing if we don't, meet our obligations financially. But here's a question. What if our money habits aren't really about money at all? What if they're rooted in the stories we've learned growing up, poverty consciousness, or what money means? Money doesn't grow on trees. And how many times have you heard that when you were a kid? The trauma we've experienced and the beliefs that we've carried for years. Our guest today, Jen Perez, founder of the Spicy CEO, which I love that name, who helps entrepreneurs transform not only their business, but also their relationship with money. Today, we're going to go beyond budgeting and into more about wealth, scarcity, self-worth, healing, what money really means, how we can use it to our benefit. And we're so glad that you're here, Jen. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
I love to meet you ladies.
Jen is someone
Thanks for
that
being
I
here.
met through one of the masterminds that I belong to. And I've referred some clients to her. I've got a couple of my clients that are using her services. She was a speaker for me at a show in Long Beach, and I think she's going to do it again in February of coming up next
Yep.
year about money because these small business owners is such a great topic. And then there's a cruise at the end of January that Jen went to. It's a marketing cruise, and she said, "Oh, you should go next year." So I'm currently signed up for the cruise at the end of January that Jen will be on. So we know each other a little bit,
Just a little.
just a little, yeah. So, I mean, everybody has a story about money, what your parents taught you when you were growing up and then how that moves forward. But I really want to talk about your story, Jen, to start. Can you just talk a little bit about kind of your journey to where you are? Tell us about your book as well, how you got to that place, because I
Yeah.
think your story about that is really important to share.
Yeah, so it's funny. I feel like you gave me an idea. I could probably write a whole book about my money journey, right? And I'm sure we all can because we all have different stories. And mine started really growing up where I did not grow up around money. I did not grow up around entrepreneurship either. Until like I don't know how many years ago, probably like 5 or 10 years ago, the only forms of investing I knew of were a 401k and stocks or long-term rentals. That was to my knowledge of what investing meant. So growing up in a household where, again, money doesn't grow on trees kind of a thing, right? Save up for a rainy day. Not being able to afford a lot of the things that I would see other people do. In fact, I'll never forget when I went to college, I went to a Big Ten university, still paying on that thing, but the experience was amazing, don't get me wrong, but I'll never forget my dad told me when I get there to just watch out. I don't think watch out was the right word he used, but he basically made it aware that people might be showing up in limousines. And to me, that's like Richie Rich type of a like, ooh, they've got money, right? Because I never had money. I've moved a lot. In fact, to date, I have moved 35 times in my life. And it just, when you don't have the money and it's embarrassing for one. Like I'll never forget days in school, parents or aunts or whatever pulling up in vehicles that did not look very good. Off to college and I couldn't participate. I had to be on the co-op floor, which meant I helped clean it. Now, granted, we probably had the cleanest floor in the whole campus, but right, to get a discount. So it's just having that mindset and being around people that are just used to that And I had to get out of that. I don't know why none of my family is like that, but I knew there was more to that. So went to college in Indiana, moved to Texas, been in Texas since '08. Love it. It's so much warmer, especially in the winters. Um, and along that way, my background's in accounting. And when I went to college, I went and got a degree in sociology with a minor in human sexuality because I wanted to be a sexologist. In fact, sex was more of an open topic than money at the dinner table. So
Interesting.
you mentioned my book. That's kind of where it came out. I wrote the book 69 Ways Money is Like Sex because they're both taboo topics that people don't want to talk about, and they should. And I'm not saying go shout to the world how much money you're making or how many orgasms you had last night, but you need to talk with your partner. You need to communicate with your coaches, right? And so I like to have fun with money because it is a lot of times where people are afraid to even look at it. And it's something that I filed bankruptcy in 2013 because nobody taught me about money. And so I took it upon myself to learn everything I could personally. And then when I started business a little over 10 years ago, all right, now I need to learn about business financially. And then just over the years, I'm always learning more and more because I've gone to the next level, right? So you're always learning. There's always new things out there, and honestly, new to you, probably not new to the whole world. And just being open to learn, I think, has helped me drastically over the years.
Yeah. So true. Can you guys, any of you guys relate, Kimberly or Terry,
Yeah.
relate to
Oh,
that?
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
I think everyone has heard that line. Money doesn't grow on trees.
Yep.
One thing that my mom always, and she still does it, like, oh, the rich people this, and you know what I mean? And so I really have to pay attention when she says that. But I grew up listening to that.
Yeah.
Like, and we didn't struggle financially, but we weren't the rich class. So
Yeah.
whatever she thought the rich class was, we weren't that, but we didn't, as a child, I don't remember struggling but it's really interesting because I don't remember struggling for shelter, for food. My parents just never gave up that vibe that, we didn't know where our next meal was going to come from, or we couldn't do things in the summer. We always were able to go do things in the summer. But it's really interesting because listening to those things that they said, I really struggled as a young parent. And so I felt a lot of guilt and shame not being able to give my kids what I felt like my parents gave me.
Yeah. I was going to say something too. This is the funny part. My mom used to be a banker. So in Vermilion, South Dakota, which is where I am right now, my mom grew up here. My dad too, but my mom grew up here and, was very, very smart. She had a child out of wedlock when she was 18, which was kind of a shameful thing here in town. She wasn't married, but she got a job at the bank and she was so good at it. And the stories she used to tell me back in the day, they were still writing everything on ledgers and on spreadsheet books that
Yeah.
they would put in the vault or whatever. But people actually believed that they still had money in the bank because they had checks.
Wow.
And they'd write a check and it would bounce and they'd come to the bank, what's going on? And she said, well, you don't have, this is your balance. And they go, well, why would I have checks if I don't have any money? Like that's how little they even understood back then about just the dollar in the bank, kind of thing. But my mom was an accountant most of her life. And then so I kind of had that mom that, those types of things. And then she followed what's his name that has the big program that everybody does where you pay off one bill first, then go to the next one.
Dave
What's his name?
Ramsey.
Yes, thank you.
Dave
Ramsey.
Ramsey.
Dave
Yeah.
Ramsey. My mom followed the Dave Ramsey plan,
Mhm.
got herself completely out of debt late in life.
The envelope
Yeah,
thing.
she did. She did it, and she got completely out of debt. Cut up all of her credit cards, got completely out of debt, and then when her last card before she passed, she bought with cash. So she was like not messing around. So I feel like that was the thing. But the reason I became an entrepreneur was because my mother always wanted to be a millionaire. And she had all kinds of side hustles when we were growing up. She had her main job and then just side hustle here, side hustle there. And she was never able to fully do it. Well, she just couldn't do it. She just didn't, it's not that she didn't have the drive. She just didn't have the skill set or whatever. So that's kind of why that's my kind of inspiration behind my business is my mom and other women like her who
Well,
really wanted to be
maybe
successful and just weren't able to do it.
Or maybe she had the drive, she didn't have the mindset.
Yeah, exactly.
Where I when I grew up, my dad left when I was 13, and we lived out of food pantries. We had our phone turned off. The gas station down the street, they used to take messages for us. I remember my mom used to poke holes in the numbers on the check, and the routing number and the checking number, because supposedly it wouldn't go through as quickly that way. And it was always, well, we're not going to
Yes.
pay this one, but we'll pay I mean, it was awful. So I think that's probably why I gave way too much to my kids. And now I'm dealing with estrangement and other issues, because we didn't have what we needed. And then
Yeah.
I overcompensated with my children. So it's, yeah.
You know what's really interesting that's coming up for me right now is that I developed that consciousness after my parents' divorce.
Mhm.
Because I saw my mom, all of a sudden we weren't ever struggling. I did not know them to really struggle. And like I said, I was the one that had the car, and you know what I mean? Like a lot of friends didn't, and we could go do things in the summer. So I didn't realize what that was. But then when my dad left, that all changed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
Yeah.
at a young age. And so then I started seeing my mom struggle for money.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
I think that's really where that
Yep.
started to embed a lot of things on me. And then I went into that same thing with my kids. And my kids say what you say, Kimberly, that we saw my mom and dad struggle. We robbed Peter to pay Paul. And
Yep.
so the
Mm-hmm.
cable got shut off, or something got shut off, and they just
Yep.
knew that we struggled. And so they kind of grew up going, I'm never going to go through that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
interesting how it just kind of,
Yeah, it
but
does.
I never thought of where it really started. And that's where it was just now that came up. It was actually during that transition of divorce. And I
Yep.
did see my dad get really upset with my mom the way she spent money.
Yeah. Yep.
That was a
Can you
huge
explain,
part.
Jen, with your clients and everything? Is there a common theme around,
Um,
trauma, or the way people shame, or anything around how people earn, spend, save, or
well,
avoid money?
for one, money is a tool, and that's a mindset thing, right? They need to understand it's a tool. So
Mm-hmm.
no matter whether you're a trillionaire or you're in poverty or anywhere in between, right? It's a tool. And so you have to have some mindset. But you also don't know what you don't know. And like
Mm.
we've talked about how what we were told or how we were raised and how we are with our kids. But at the same time, until someone teaches you or tells you something you don't already know, you don't know any better. You don't know that there's another solution. You don't know there's something better out there, right? And
Mhm.
so that's why, like, I took it upon myself. I went 4 years without a credit card after bankruptcy, traveling the world on a debit card. And it taught me a lot of responsibility, for one. And I was single back then, but it taught me a lot. So for one, get into the rooms of people of where they are, where you want to be, and then learn
Mm.
from them. So
Yeah.
in business, a lot of times, especially women, they're very purpose driven. They want to help everybody. They want to help their team. They want to help their clients, right? They want to help because they're probably doing something they hopefully they love doing. The problem is that they don't pay themselves first and consistently. That is the number one problem I see, is that they aren't paying themselves consistently and they're not aware of the numbers. They're the expert in what they do, but they're like, hey, I make good money. So on paper and in public, I look like I'm successful. But I see I have a profit, but I look at my bank account and wonder, where did it go? And so most of my clients, that's their problem, is they're the expert in marketing, they're the expert in plumbing, they're, whatever it is. So um, when you have someone that can hold your hand and help you actually open the door, look at your numbers, right? Like I teach people, even have a quick 5-minute money date, and you can do this in personal too. Actually look at your bank accounts and 5 minutes, just look at them, see what's coming in, what's going out, and were you paying yourself consistently or saving consistently? And just look at it, because that's another thing, is some people have the fear of what's actually going on. Well, you can't be strategic and plan for the future or plan to scale a business if you don't even know what the numbers are. So that's probably the number one thing that I get with my clients. And I love it when they get to see what that is. They see and are clear on what the numbers are. And we dive a little bit into the personal, because your business should support your lifestyle, not the other way around. So we need to know, how much is that lifestyle? and trying to, well, I can cover my bills. Great. What else do you want to do this year? Do you want to take a vacation? You want to put a down payment on a house? What is that? So we can reverse engineer that into the business. So that actually, it's funny. I wrote number 27 in my book. It's ladies, if you're not getting yours first, you're doing it wrong. And so, like, I talk about paying yourself first because it's so important to do that. In fact, I am a certified profit first professional. So if you don't know what that is, it's a cash flow method. And I kind of stole this from Mike Michalowicz, but if I were to ask you, would you put your health last or your family last? Would you do it? No. So why would we pay ourselves last? And so sometimes just thinking about things in different analogies like that might help that mindset on, okay, yeah, I need to take care of myself first before my team, before my clients, because if I don't take care of me, right, it's kind of hard to give my best as the owner, as the coach, as the whatever role you have in helping those other people.
You know what, Jen? Maybe I just want to tell you this because this is one area that I don't really give myself. I feel like I don't give myself enough credit for because I feel like there's a certain way that you should be saving, because of probably what I learned. And if it's not in the savings account and you can't see it, then it's not there. But into my retirement accounts, I'm putting more than 10% through work. And then and then I also have automatically deducted into a separate retirement account go every single week. I put money in there.
Good.
And it's really funny because when I tell myself that I'm not doing it, it's because I'm not physically putting money in savings that I'm seeing.
Right.
And so somebody had to show me that. And I'm like, oh, I am doing it some way, but I feel like it's a good amount that I'm putting away every single month. One that's not being taxed, and then one that I'm just doing. So because I'm not seeing it though in my savings account, and I'm not seeing it there, I feel like I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have people, because I feel like I shame myself sometimes because I'm not doing enough, but then that's a whole nother program in itself.
Well, I actually teach people out of sight, out of mind. So in business, for example, we have them set up multiple bank accounts,
Yeah.
sort of like Dave Ramsey's envelope system, right? But for business, and honestly, who uses cash for business? Everything's online these days.
Yeah.
So one of those accounts is called Profit. And when you set that up at a completely different bank that you never check, you just put
Yeah.
a percent, like start with 1%. Every deposit, put 1% into that account. You forget about it until the end of
Yeah.
the quarter, which was, yesterday, the end of the quarter, you go in there like, holy cow, this is cool. I have money in there that you didn't know
Yeah.
about. When you put it in savings or whatever type of way that you're saving for the future, because there's so many different ways of doing that, right? And beliefs in how to manage the money and everything. But if it's out of sight, out of mind, you're not going to spend it either.
Right.
And so it's helping you being more strategic. So it's good that you do that because it's nice
Before
money too.
Yeah, and here's the thing is when I do go on and look how much progress I've made, the moment I do that, my mind goes, "Ooh, what can I spend it on?" Or I could go do this. You know what I mean? So and I don't
Thank
touch
you
it.
for that honesty, Terry, because I was thinking the same thing.
Yes. Thank God that it's put away, right? But I'm like, "Ooh, I have money. I can go do this." And so I want to know where that comes from because I feel like that is part of that whole thing that like as soon as you
Like a
get
limiting
something,
belief, kind of.
yeah, like you want to go spend it, or like, oh my gosh, I have money, I want to go do this. And so for me, I think it's even a good thing that it's not in my savings, my physical savings, that it's actually put away somewhere.
Yeah, that helps. But even if it is just like a stereotypical savings account, if you nickname it what the purpose of that is for. So if you're saving up for a house or a car or a vacation or whatever that is, then it has a purpose. And then guess what? You reach that goal that you need to deposit on the house, go buy your house. Like you celebrate with that, right? So sometimes when you nickname your bank accounts for the purpose of them, you can still hide them so you don't necessarily see them, but it's okay to spend it if that's what the intent of it was for. So that's the other thing is that you see that and you're like, oh, there's so many things I could do with it. But what was the intent of saving for that in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
What was that? Was it to save for your kids' college? Was it to save for this big trip you want to take, like depending on what that is. And I think that sometimes helps us when we see the word on that bank account. We're like, oh, well, that's for vacation. So I'm going to leave that because I really want to take that trip. So sometimes that can help just nicknaming your bank accounts or savings.
Yeah.
I love
That's
that.
great.
I mean,
I like
there's
that.
a limiting belief around too. And I was thinking, especially in business with small businesses, I've noticed because they're not an expert in accounting, or I'm assuming they have a CPA, but not every small business has a CPA even, and they're not following best practices, and they are ashamed about that. And so they don't say anything and they don't do anything and they don't want to tell anybody because they're ashamed about that. So once you take, they made me think in their mind, well, I'm just bad with money. I'm just, rich, those kinds of things. And so if you come in with somebody like Jen, who doesn't shame you about your money, who doesn't make you feel like you're doing, you're a bad person because you didn't do the right thing at the very beginning, then you have somebody you can trust who's not looking at you like a bad person. Then you can open up the books and be like, okay, this is what I'm seeing. We need to do this, and has a step and a process for you. I mean, I feel like that's really empowering when somebody doesn't make you feel bad about the fact that you didn't, you're an expert in your field. You don't have to be an expert over here too,
Yep.
Right.
just
Yep.
like Jen said. And I think other people, the other thing I was going to mention to you with family is sometimes even family, when I started my own business, because they're so ingrained in going to the 9 to 5 and working for somebody else and getting paid the traditional way. When you start a business, they're trying to get you to do something different. Why don't you get a real job? Well, why are you doing that? Or
Yeah.
why you do, those kinds of things, which goes back to that kind of traditional 9 to 5 thing.
And that can go back to not just the 9 to 5, but limited belief, because I still have some people, family members even, that I've been in business for over 10 years. I know what I'm doing. Um, but they are a 9 to 5 type of, they're not entrepreneurial. And I have big goals and big dreams. And I'll never forget, even when I bought my house, it's a nice house, but to me, it's not a nice house. Like, oh my goodness, like it wasn't a starter home. It wasn't like we didn't have to like do a whole bunch of stuff to it, kind of a thing. But it was a decent house. And they were like, that is a nice house. You don't need to spend that much money on a house. And I'm like, I can afford to. I want that house. Like, if I can afford to do it and I want it, why not have that pleasure and excitement of things I want in my life? So I still have some people in my life that bring, I love them, but sometimes they try to bring you back down, in my opinion, because you have these goals and you want to go do this, you want to travel the world, whatever that is. And if you want to go do those things, don't let someone tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying go build up a bunch of credit card debt to make it happen type of thing, but
Yeah.
being responsible, right? It's hard when you have like family, you can't really leave them, right? Per
Yeah, you
se. And
can.
so getting in different
Kimberly's
circles
like, you
that
can't
we
leave
lift you
them.
back up. Yeah. Well, they're still your blood, but yeah.
I think the other misconception too is that rich people are greedy, or that
Mm,
there's also a preconceived notion about what, like you were saying, what your mom thought rich people are, Terry. The
yeah.
richy rich, and like they're like they're bad people, they're greedy, they're entitled, they're highfalutin. My mom used to call them highfalutin. She used to call them the
They
hood.
don't know what it is to struggle. And I think
Yeah,
that is an
yes,
opinion
it is.
because you don't know where they started.
Yep.
And I don't think, and Dr. Ed is one of our mindful coach, and he always says, and I just lost my train of thought. It's called brain fog. Um, the association of money being bad, that making it about money is a bad thing. And we're not making it about money because our real passion behind our business has nothing to do with money. It has to do with how we're trying to serve others. But the money thing is not a bad thing, and we shouldn't be feeling
No.
bad about making money.
Well, and like Jen said, it's a resource. And if you want to go make a real impact in the world, it's going to take resources.
I tell a lot of people that are afraid to make profit because they're afraid, oh, well, then I have to pay more taxes. Well, first of all, if you have the right CPA and some of my knowledge, like you can get strategic with not paying as many taxes legally, right?
Yeah.
However, what if you made so much money that you could make a bigger impact, that you could go give to charity, that you could
Yeah.
maybe help one of your kids start their business or start another business, right? And leave a legacy for your kids. So like there's so much more beyond that. So I have to try to
Mhm.
get them out of that oh, I don't want to make too much profit or I'll have to pay taxes. Well, it's in a perfect world, you owe zero taxes and you get zero taxes. That is like perfect, right? Um,
One of the things that in my family or people that were close to me would say, not my parents directly, but some people that were close to me would say, "Oh, but I can't make this much money because it's going to mess up my disability or it's going to mess up this." And I'm like, and I used to think by that belief, but now I'm thinking, well, if you make more than disability and it that's actually a better thing, right? But sometimes people
yep,
don't get past that. Or like,
yep.
oh my God, I don't want to pay. So I hear a lot of people say this even where I work now. I don't want to work overtime because I pay too much taxes. And I'm like, but you get it back at the end of the year. You might not see it right away. It's going to get taxed, but you will if you can get a lot of that back at the end of the year. So I do even hear that with people that I'm around.
Well, and my mom's been on disability since I was 5 years old. So that was a lot of the thing too. Like she'd always like she signed for me that I was 16 when I was only 14, so I could work and help pay, for stuff around the house. But she would never get a job because it would mess up her disability.
Yes.
Or and it was like, so we were literally scrounging. I remember she ran out of gas so many times that when my one sister was younger, she'd always check the gas tank before she'd even get in the car. Because if there wasn't enough gas, she wasn't going. And she's like 7,
Yeah.
And we'd be out at the toll booths, jumping out of the car, looking for coins. It was terrible. But, you know, but yeah,
Wow.
And
disability.
Yeah.
it's hard when you see something in them, like my cousin, when she was probably 19-ish, her mom grew up in poverty for the most part, like child support, but food stamps, things of that nature. And she had a baby, my cousin did, and she loved accounting. I'm like, hey, that's up my alley. Like, so I was like, this is great. And she wanted to like go work at H&R Block just to kind of get your feet wet, trying to see if what's available to where she lives. And she's like, no, I'm fine. Like she was a bagger at a grocery store. And I'm like, you have so much potential to go do these things.
Yeah.
You enjoy it. Why not? She was like, well, I grew up on welfare. So what's the difference? And it hurt to hear that because I'm just
Yeah.
like, and I was hoping by me moving across the country and doing what I wanted to do that she could see that and see, oh, I can do that. Like I am able to do that. So it's hard too when you see those people and you're like, that they are capable of making
Yeah.
more money than that. My dad, he's on disability. It's not just, and his wife can only work so much, right? Well, it's not just the disability part, but the medication because they get benefits by being on disability. And it's like, but what if you made so much that that did not matter? And
Yeah.
it's funny because he's one of my biggest supporters in going big and doing my dream, having my dreams and everything. So it's like, wait a second, you're telling me to go do all these things.
And I
So
can
yeah,
and I can see where that happens because even now being a nurse and being in the healthcare profession, people who are on Medicaid have way more, but they have better insurance. I mean, they pay for a lot more. So I see where people can do that, but I just thank my parents for um instilling in me so many things because I was that young mom that ended up on those services because I was a mom at
Yeah,
18. And so I needed support. And so what I did, and I'm so glad I did it, was I just said I'm gonna because I there was some shame around that at first, because my parents didn't
absolutely.
didn't accept, they didn't feel like, you don't accept a handout. And that's what it felt like is that's I there was a kind of shame around that with me. We'll just leave it at that. But I used it to benefit me. Like I took advantage of the childcare and the WIC and the
Yeah,
education that I was able to get. And I
yeah,
got my nursing degree. But I knew once I got my nursing degree and my education that it was going to change my family. That was the vision I kept in my mind that, man, once I get through this, it's going to change everything for me and my kids. And
yeah,
so I didn't make an excuse that, oh my gosh, I got to stay on this because I'm getting these services. It was great to be able to help me and support me because I didn't need anything else to be able to get through being able to get through nursing school, which was
Right.
Right. It
phenomenal.
was
that's
temporary, which is what it's really
Very
supposed to be
temporary.
meant. I used it too because I had my daughter at 18.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was a temporary thing until
Yes.
we got ourselves
Yeah.
to the next stage, which is what it's really
100%.
supposed to be for, not for you to be on
Exactly.
for life.
Yeah. It's a tool. It's there to help you when you are in need. And so many people
Yes.
are afraid when life happens and it sucks and I get it, but it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
it I
okay
can
to take
understand,
it.
yeah, it can be embarrassing, yeah, but at the same time, you got to put food on the table for your kids. You have to have a roof over their head. You have to take care of those essentials. And if you're in that
Yeah.
spot, it's okay to ask for help. What's the worst case? They say no and you're in the same spot you
You're in
were.
the same spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I realized I put off on my kids is that shame that I was just talking about. They're in law enforcement, and they did like they had them come on and record like a little video for moms, one Mother's Day. And my son called me and said, "Well, Mom, they wanted me to record something for Mother's Day." And I said on there that, I grew up in humble experiences, and sometimes my mom couldn't provide for us in ways that she thought she should provide for us. And he goes, "I don't want you to be embarrassed by that." And I said, "I'm not embarrassed by that at all." I said,
Yeah.
if what my experience made you be a better person and actually make you be more responsible or do things different, that is okay. I'm not embarrassed by it. So you don't have to be embarrassed. It helped me become who I am. But I remember him saying that. And then there were times when they were little when I would say I wasn't doing enough. It was my perception. They were like, "Mom, but when we had Christmas, maybe we didn't get things throughout the year all the time, but when it was Christmas, or when at the, when you were single head of household and got these big income tax checks at the end of the year, I always went and took them to go do something." So they were
Right.
always like, they didn't feel that was what I was thinking was hurting them. They didn't feel that. They still felt loved and they still felt provided for, but they did see things happen throughout our life, but they never felt like they didn't get enough.
Yeah. I was going to
The good
ask
old
Jen.
Kmart had the layaway.
Oh,
That's how I
Blue
got
Mark
many of
Christmas.
Christmases.
Yes, man,
Yeah.
layaway.
and Sears. Sears had it too.
Yep.
I was gonna say, Jen, what is your perception of how closely self-worth is tied to net worth?
Mm. Um, People think it's closer than it should be.
Sure.
Um, because a lot of times they look at that net worth and whether they're doing great or not, or wherever they're at in there, they associate that with themselves and, oh,
Yeah.
I'm doing well or I'm not. And that's
Yeah.
not the case. Everybody's got a roller coaster in life, in business, things happen. Um, and you can learn from it too, though. Like if you're not where you want to be on your net worth, how can you focus on yourself to get to achieve what you want in that?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people think there's a very, very close connection, and in
Yeah.
reality, they're separate things.
Well, and I just firmly believe that if one person can do it, anybody can do it. It's
Yeah.
not like, I just believe that to be true.
Well,
And
we did
I
it.
can,
Yeah.
yeah, and I can say at one point I did not believe that. Like I really did feel like there was a whole different class, but when I started putting myself around people that believed in that or were entrepreneurial and doing things differently than I had ever grown up to know was possible, it actually opened up doors. It was like, "Oh my gosh, I can actually have that too." It's
Yeah.
not just for them. It's for all of us.
Yes. Okay, real quick,
Well,
because I know that we're trying to be respectful of everybody's time, so I'm not trying to cut anybody off. But I wanted to ask, just real quick, and then I want to get a couple of, if we could get a couple of your numbers from your book. I would love to get just a couple so we can understand. But
Okay.
before, can we talk about money, relationships and money really quickly? Do you have a quick recommendation for a husband and wife or couples, any couple that to keep them from arguing about money? Like, I don't know if you have a recommendation that you have for couples in regards to money to maybe avoid some of the arguing about it, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. And part of it is because I've been there. Communication for one, and I think that's one of my chapters. Communication is key. right? You have to communicate. And a lot of the money problems that people say cause a divorce, it's not that there's money problems, it's the communication understanding of money, because maybe one grew up with money and one did not. Maybe one has a certain belief of money, the other has something different. And so if you communicate and make sure you're on the same page, some of it you might be on different things. And so you, like my husband and I don't know how many times we've tried. Well, of course, I look at my numbers every day, I budget, I do, like, that's my expertise. He is not financially savvy in that way. He thinks check to check. So we had to come up with a way that worked for both of us. Because if I built out all these spreadsheets and did these things, he'd be like, what? Um, in most relationships, that's the case. One
I was
is
gonna,
financially savvy, the
yeah,
other's not as much. And so you just have to find what's that middle ground to
Yeah.
where give and take, right? Like, okay, I'll get away with the spreadsheets. I used to have them. I don't anymore. But I went away with that and I found out, okay, well, what works for him, because as the financially savvy person, I know my stuff and I can still do it. I can still create the spreadsheets or the budgeting tools or whatnot. But I wanted to make sure that he understood what was going on, that he felt confident with the money, and that we were on the same page. Because there's times when I'd learn about something and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exciting. Let's do this. And he'd be like, yeah, sure, that's great. And he didn't understand a single thing. So you have to make sure that you are on the same page and they understand it and that they're comfortable with that. Because if not, maybe take a little bit more time before implementing, or and there's all different rules about, oh, you should have joint accounts versus separate and all of that. To be honest, do what works for you.
yeah, we don't.
You know, be in communication together and talk. But if it works better that you have a his and hers account and then a joint one for mixed bills, or you have one account where you have everything together, it's whatever works for the couple. And you just got to talk through that. And if you have to make a change, make a change. Because I've been there to where now something that I used to not believe in, I used to believe, oh, if you're married, you have joint. Everything should be joint in money. I myself now with my husband, we have his income, my income, we have a joint that covers the bills, but we still know how much each other make. We still need know what our goals are and savings and all of that. And so it's just we found a way that worked so that I still get to be excited about what's going on and knowing all the numbers, and he gets clarity on and confidence in what's going on. So we had it
Yeah.
took, I mean, I've been married for 10 years. It took a while. But communication, I think, is the number one thing in that.
I love that. I have a colleague who every December, early December, he and his wife get together and they decide what worked this year, what are their goals for the next year, and they put their budgets together and then they both are on the same page for the year. This is what we're going to be spending, on this or that and the other thing. I said, you should teach a class on that because I just love, and they have, the spreadsheets and everything. They both sit down in front of the computer together and they go over everything for the year. And I think that's such a good idea to do,
Yeah.
once a year. I'm not in a relationship, but that seems like a really great idea if you were, you know?
Call it a weekly money date. I mean,
Yeah.
have it on your calendar if that's what works.
Yeah. Do women and men see money differently? Is there any kind of anything related to gender there or not really? Really just more how you grew up?
I think it's more their knowledge, their beliefs.
Hmm.
Whether they're a man or a woman doesn't, their gender does not really affect that. Just stereotypically, women are more purpose driven. But I've seen it other ways. I've seen where women are the breadwinner versus the men, they're stay-at-home dads, or vice versa, right? Just nowadays, roles are so commingled and reversed than stereotypical back in the 50s. So I don't think there really is that difference between a man and a woman. It's more of their knowledge, their beliefs. And honestly, that can change over time when they learn things or communicate with each other and what those are too.
It's true. Can you share just a couple of key points from your book? I would love just a couple of, just a
Sure.
couple, just so we
Okay.
can understand what's in there. We are going to
Yeah.
share the link to her book that's on Amazon. Amazon. I was like, I just mispronounced that weird. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Amazon. It's on Amazon. We'll put a link in the show notes so you can go buy it. And then we're also going to put a link to her website, thespicyceo.com. It is thespicyceo.com, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The Spicy
So if
CEO.
you want to
Yep.
learn more about her programs or anything like that, again, I have referred Jen to my clients, and I think she does a great job. She also has a bookkeeping service that she has. If people need bookkeeping services, that's a separate thing as well. But yeah,
Yep.
if you could read a couple, that'd be great.
Yeah. So you want me to read the whole thing or just the different ways?
Whatever you decide.
Okay. So I already mentioned one, but one of them is foreplay matters. And it's about setting that foundation, right? Because you can have quick wins, but if you don't have that foundation, then for the long haul isn't going to work out as well, right? Another one, bigger isn't always better. So,
Mm.
and I'm trying to remember like what specifically I talk about. It's funny because I live in Texas, so you hear the everything's bigger in Texas, right? Um, but sometimes when you get like higher paying clients, for example, too, it's not always better because they pay more. Like they could be what I call a PITA, and you don't want to hire them,
Absolutely. Yep.
right? So bigger is not always better when it comes to
Yep.
that. Um, Let me see. It's better when you know what you want
Yeah.
because then in business
Clarity.
you're going in circles. Like now I get it. If you're brand new in business, you're trying things, you're figuring some of it out.
Yeah.
But if you know what you want, you're very clear when you speak to people about it. They hear that confidence in you. They can see,
Clarity,
okay,
man.
she
We go
knows her
over, we
stuff.
talk about clarity a lot because clarity
Yes.
is so important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so important to know your why you're
Yeah.
doing it and
Yep.
what yeah. It's so that's key.
And I
Yeah.
want to ask one thing. So if somebody's feeling really like anxiety ridden around finances, or they feel like they're not following best practices or really need help, just what's the first step? Should they, tell me what the first step is for them to kind of get back on track?
Um, if they're feeling like stressed, overwhelmed, just pause, breathe. Don't look at the money for a week or a day, depending on your situation. I mean, sometimes I know it's hard. You still have to pay bills. And remember that money is just a tool. So no matter where you're at with it, there's still, again, there's that roller coaster. You're maybe on the down way of the roller coaster. Guess what? It comes back up. And so if you can just also, um, I mean, for example, I'm hosting a masterclass coming up next week. So if you attend things like that, get around the room to where you're learning different things based on the reasons why you're stressed. Are you stressed because you have all this money and you don't know what to do with it? Are you stressed because you are in so much debt and you don't know how to get out of it? Like it depends on what the reason of the stress is too, right? Oh my gosh, you have two kids going off to college. How am I going to pay for that? There's so many different reasons for it, but we all have it. We all have gone through things, right? And so talk with your mentors, talk with your coaches, and just have somebody else's perspective to know, first of all, I'll tell you right now, you're not alone because we've probably all been there before, at least once, if not more. But two, when you're around those people, you don't feel like you're on that deserted island, and you can have that support in knowing what that next step is specific to you and what your needs are.
Yes. I love that. Do you
Yes.
guys have any last thoughts? Anything that she said that, I mean, there's a million things I could ask, because this is a conversation that could be 3 hours long easily.
Yeah.
But any other thoughts about that?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you,
I
Jen. This
appreciate,
was
yeah, I
I
was
think
say
great.
I
it's amazing. I
appreciate.
think it's so neat. And again, we're gonna put a link to her website, thespiceceo.com, in the show notes, as well as a link to her book, which I think, I went to her book launch in
Yes.
Dallas. Well, the first one. I think you did another one after that, but I went to the first
Yeah.
one, I think. So I love the concept. I love the ideas, and she's got some really great tips in there. And again, she can do a consultation with you to figure out what your
Yep.
needs are if you need it.
Yep.
But
And
thanks
I
so much.
share my mistakes. I share my stories. I give tips on things to do, what not to do. Some of it's mindset. So there's a combination of that all throughout. And my goal, honestly, is for you to take one thing out of there. If you can take one thing and implement that in your personal life, your business, whichever, then I feel like I did my job.
Yeah.
I had someone come to me actually, and he's like, "Yeah, it did two things for me. One, it made me go buy the book Profit First." And I was like, he's like, Mike should start paying you for that. I'm like, don't worry, Mike and I have got we've got some things going on. But two, he learned he needed to increase his prices, which is a very common thing that people are afraid to do.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm excited because it's a short read. It's only 96 pages. But it's fun, it's exciting, it kind of breaks the ice a bit, and it's authentically me because
Yeah.
too many people, I've been told that I'm like seeing, I actually asked a friend this, you're like seeing a gynecologist for the first time. I was like, what? And she said, it's, the emotions of, I don't know what to expect. Is she going to judge me? Oh my gosh, what is she going to say? What is she going to see? She's going to see what's behind closed doors, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with money. And
Yeah.
so I have to build that trust factor. And I want to be that resource to be able to help someone in whatever they have going on. And I've had people come to me making so much profit. They're like, help. What do I do with it? To I'm in so much debt. I'm in over my head. I don't know how to get out of this. I'm thinking about bankruptcy. And so then and all in between. And so it's just, I've been there before. So it helps when someone actually understands it, can relate to it.
Yeah.
I love I'm getting goosebumps. I love being able to help people reach those goals faster than I was able to.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
Thanks,
I'm
It's
gonna
been a
everybody.
I'm
lovely
gonna jump
Go to
on
her
conversation.
Amazon and
website.
get your book myself.
Yes, it's good.
Yes, I
So
appreciate
look
it.
forward to that. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Jen,
you.
Thank you.